Now talking about the various processes in the schedule part of the project, let's first understand the various processes involved as part of schedule management. It starts with planning, and that's typically how it happens. If you pick up any knowledge area, one of the important things we should be doing is planning. Once we have a plan in place, it becomes much easier for us to stick to it or refer to it and execute the schedule management activities. Once we have a plan in place, we try to understand what activities are involved in the project. Whatever project you are working on, whether it's a research and development project, an IT product development project, or a manufacturing project, you need to list the activities involved. Once we have a list of activities, we need to understand their sequencing. This is where we consider dependencies. We need to determine the dependency of one activity over another, and for that, we sometimes need to factor in various assumptions, which should also be documented. The next process is sequencing activities. Once we have a list of activities and understand their sequencing, we can estimate the duration required to complete each activity. For example, if it is a requirement gathering phase within an IT project, and we have an activity of conducting a requirement gathering workshop, once we know its sequence, we can estimate the duration required for it. After putting together all the activities and estimating the duration of each, we can compile the project schedule. Once we have a schedule in place, it is important to continuously monitor and control it. The schedule management process follows a logical sequence. We start with planning and end with controlling the schedule. Now, we will understand these processes in more detail. Starting with the planning aspect, when we work on schedule management, we consider certain inputs for each process. There are always specific inputs to consider, tools and techniques to use, and expected outputs from each process. We have organized our slides in a similar manner. For each process, we will understand key inputs, tools and techniques, and expected outputs. Let's get started with the first process in schedule management, planning schedule management. In this process, we create a plan for schedule management, documenting activities, procedures, policies, schedule models, and estimation techniques. Proper documentation ensures effective planning, development, execution, and control of the project schedule. For example, we document our approach to sequencing activities and estimation techniques. Should we use PERT, bottom-up estimation, analogous estimation, expert judgment, or another technique? As a team, we agree on these aspects and document them in the plan. This plan provides guidance and direction throughout the project. Whenever we encounter challenges or if the project manager is unavailable, we refer to the plan. If the team wants to refer to the plan and get going, I think this is the document that we can look forward to. So the plan is very important, not just for starting but for providing inputs for each of these processes. As I mentioned, let's understand the planning part. What kind of input can we look forward to? Certainly, when we do project management as part of scheduling, it's important for us to know the scope. Now, we are coming up with the schedule. Remember that we are working on the project, and we are developing the project schedule. In order to do that, we need to know the list of activities, their sequencing, and how to estimate them. For that, we need to be aware of the project scope and any other information available from various documents. One important document is the project charter, which provides key milestones. For example, when am I supposed to complete the requirements specification document? When should I finish the high-level or low-level design or the build activities? What is the deadline for UAT sign-off, business acceptance testing, or user acceptance testing? These key milestones are crucial for the project and come from the project charter. Apart from that, there are additional factors to consider while working on the scheduling aspect of the project. One such input is enterprise environmental factors. These include internal and external elements that impact the project. For instance, cultural aspects of the organization can influence the project. How is the organizational structure, hierarchical or flat? Is it inclusive, process-oriented, or autocratic? The leadership style within the organization can also have a significant effect. Another key factor is resource availability. What kind of project management software are you using? Some teams use Microsoft Project, Primavera, or Clarity by CA. Various software solutions are available for managing project schedules, and the choice of software can impact project planning. Commercial aspects also play a role in project scheduling. Factors such as published budgets, cost constraints, and available funding influence how schedules are developed. Another important element is organizational process assets, OPAs. Enterprise environmental factors and organizational process assets serve as input factors in almost all processes. OPAs provide historical data about past projects, which can be very useful, especially for estimation techniques such as analogous estimation, historical estimation, or parametric estimation. If we need to refer to a plan, we must determine which template to use for the schedule management plan. These templates typically come from OPAs. When it comes to tools and techniques for project scheduling, expert judgment is crucial. We can engage people with previous experience in schedule management and take their input. We also need to analyze data using techniques such as alternative analysis, which helps in making informed decisions. For example, if we have a problem statement and project context, the agreed-upon solution will influence how we plan the schedule. Data analysis helps with reserve analysis, where we determine how management reserves and buffers should be included in the plan. Meetings are another simple yet essential tool in project management. We must plan when to conduct meetings, whom to invite, and how to engage stakeholders effectively to develop the schedule management plan. At the end of this process, we obtain the schedule management plan, which includes essential aspects such as the schedule model. This model outlines the project schedule, including key dates, milestones, and activities. The level of accuracy is another critical aspect. It must be agreed upon by all stakeholders. For instance, when estimating activity durations, should we allow a margin of 10%, 20%, or just 5%? This depends on the project and stakeholder agreements. Another consideration is the unit of measurement. Are we estimating in hours, days, or weeks? This must be clarified to maintain consistency across the project. Or minus control threshold for the schedule of the project. So it could be maybe plus 10, and the minus 10% scale variations are allowed. Okay, or it's fine, basically something that everybody has agreed on. That control threshold of 5%, plus or minus, or 10%, plus or minus, is something that could be absorbed. Then, the project schedule model maintenance. This is where we talk about the monitoring part of it. So how can we monitor the schedule? How can we come up with the variances and monitor it effectively? Organizational procedures links, so that will come from your OPS, and that will be a part of OPS later as well. Rules of performance measurements. How are you going to measure performance on the project? However, we go to where this data will come from, release and iteration length. So if you are working in small iterations, we can also agree upon whether the iteration should be 3 weeks or 4 weeks, or what the duration should be. Reporting formats. If you are using any tool, should it be automated? How should it be set up? That talks about the planning aspect of the project. So that is the first process. Now, we are moving on to the next process, which is about defining activity. Once we have the plan in place, how are we going to approach schedule management? What's the plan for doing that? Then, I can get started with the first activity, which is defining activities. That's another important process that we need to work on. This is the process where we come up with various activities by referring to the scope of the project. Once I have a scope in place, I will refer to it and come up with some of the key deliverables of the project. I will break them down into smaller work packages, which will then be further broken down into activities. Each of these activities can then be estimated. So if it's the requirements phase, then requirements will be broken down into various smaller activities. I will certainly be able to share a quick example which will help us relate to it better. As you can see on the screen here, if project management is one of the phases that we are working on, we could be performing various activities. It could be identifying focus group targets, performing focus group meetings, or conducting surveys. These are some of the activities that we have agreed upon. So I have a work package called Project Requirements. A project requirement is then broken into various activities. This is what defining activities is essentially about. One of the techniques we use here is decomposition. We decompose these work packages into smaller activities, which will help us in better estimation. What inputs can be used in defining activities? First, we refer to the project management plan to understand the approach we are going to use. We will also be able to refer to some internal and external factors, such as commercial information that is available and published, which can be used for estimation. Another factor could be PMIS, Project Management Information System, such as MS Project, Primavera, or Clarity, whichever tool you are using. Under OPS, I can refer to processes for activity decomposition or past knowledge from previous projects. There could also be knowledge repositories that provide insights into defining activities and planning informal scheduling activities. So that's the input. What kind of tools and techniques can be used when defining activities? We can certainly take expert opinions on how to break down work packages. Decomposition is a technique I mentioned earlier. It allows breaking down work packages into various activities. For example, requirements are broken down into different activities. Similarly, we can also use the technique called rolling wave planning. Rolling wave planning and progressive elaboration go hand in hand. As we progress with the project, things unfold and we gather more information about phases, milestones, requirements, scope, etc. Rolling wave planning means using the available information today to do detailed planning for the next 1 or 2 months, while for information we don't yet have, we conduct high-level planning for 3 or 4 months ahead. This way, detailed planning is done for shorter time frames, like 15 days to 3 months, while high-level planning is done for the rest of the timeline. That is rolling wave planning. Another technique we can use is meetings, which are always useful. By the end of the defining activities process, we expect to come up with a list of activities, like the one I showed you. For example, if I have a requirement as a work package, I can break it down into various activities. By the end of this process, we obtain a detailed list of activities. What I will get is project requirement finalized or signed off, or a requirement specification document. So that's my milestone. So when I prepare this document, that is going to be my milestone. So I need to know the list of milestones and the change request. Since I am referring to the scope, I am decomposing the scope. I am getting into the scope in a very detailed manner. That means, while interacting with the stakeholders and the customers, I would also be able to sometimes get the change requests, whatever is missing to be added. So that might come as a change request, which we need to deal with. The project management plan will also get updated with respect to anything that needs to be changed. If there is any specific learning, we just go back and update the plan as well. So that's the defining activity. To quickly summarize, we started with project schedule management as an important knowledge area. I explained that schedule management begins with planning the schedule for the project. Once we have a plan in place, we define the approach to managing the schedule, then, we create a list of activities as part of the activity definition process. Once we have the activity list, the next logical step is to sequence them. This is done in the sequence activities process. In this process, as the name suggests, we organize the activities in the correct order. We also need to understand the dependencies and relationships between them. Sometimes we must consider constraints and assumptions related to the activities. All of these factors are part of sequencing activities. While doing this, we should refer to key inputs. The first is the project plan, which guides how we sequence the activities. The plan is important because it provides an approach to organizing them. We also need to refer to the scope baseline since activities are based on the project scope. Additionally, project documents like activity attributes help us understand key details about each activity, including assumptions, complexity, preceding and succeeding tasks, and other related factors. The activity list is crucial, along with the assumption log, which contains assumptions related to activities and milestones. This helps in sequencing activities to meet milestones. Enterprise environmental factors, EEF, can also be useful, including project management tools like Clarity or Workbench for scheduling. Organizational work authorization systems help identify who will work on which tasks. Templates for sequencing activities can also be helpful, along with access to previous project files, which provide valuable insights. For sequencing activities, one of the most important techniques is the precedence diagramming method. This method involves placing activities in sequence using diagrams, such as the activity on node or activity on arrow methods. A precedence diagram helps visualize the sequence of activities, showing their flow and dependencies. This makes it easier to understand how tasks connect. Another key aspect is dependency determination, as well as leads and lags. A lead means an activity can start earlier than planned, such as 2 or 3 days before its scheduled time. A lag means a delay is required before the next activity can begin. For example, if you are painting a house, you first need to remove the old paint. If this takes 3 days, you must wait before starting the painting activity. This waiting time is a lag. Some activities can run in parallel. For instance, while working on a high-level design, you might also begin the low-level design. If you start the low-level design early, this is considered a lead. Leads and lags play a role in project acceleration techniques like fast tracking and crashing, which I will discuss later. By the end of this process, we should have a properly sequenced list of activities. The project schedule network diagram is what we should be getting. As a result of any changes or new learning, we update the project documents. That's something we can certainly expect. I'm going to quickly show you the project network diagram so that you can get a clear idea of how it looks. In fact, this could be one example of how a network diagram is drawn these days. You can get it directly from the tool because there are effective software solutions that generate network diagrams. These diagrams help us calculate the critical path and other important details. That was about sequencing activities, which we can do using the precedence diagram method, PDM. This is a very useful method. Now, moving to the next process, estimating activity duration. When we estimate activity duration, we first have a list of activities. We also sequence these activities and create a network diagram. That's where we are now. The next step is to estimate the time needed for each activity. Essentially, we determine the time required for each task. For example, conducting surveys or preparing market research findings might take 12 hours, analyzing and consolidating data might take 18 hours. Based on this, we estimate the time needed for each activity in the agreed-upon unit and capture it in the plan. One of the key inputs for this process is the project management plan, which helps us understand the schedule management plan. Another important input is project documents. We refer to activity attributes, assumptions about activities, and lessons learned from previous projects to help with estimation. Milestones also play a role. If a milestone needs to be completed by a certain date, we check if it fits into the schedule. The project team is responsible for estimation. Enterprise environmental factors also influence this process. For example, productivity metrics help us estimate activities. If analyzing market research data took 18 hours on a previous project, it might take the same time on this one. The team's location and time zones can also impact the schedule. The project calendar, scheduling methodologies, and other tools need to be considered as well. In terms of estimation techniques, expert judgment is one of the simplest yet most powerful tools. Another method is analogous estimation, where we compare past projects to estimate the current one. Parametric estimation is based on project-specific parameters. For example, in a software project, input validation might be a medium complexity task that typically takes 1 hour. If there are 3 such tasks, we estimate a total of 3 hours. 3-point estimation, also known as the Program Evaluation and Review Technique, PERT, considers the most likely, pessimistic, and optimistic estimates to determine the final duration. Meetings help involve stakeholders, while data analysis ensures we factor in previous constraints. Decision-making techniques are also important. For instance, a make or buy decision affects scheduling. How long will it take if we buy a solution versus if we build it ourselves? Bottom-up estimation involves breaking down work packages into smaller activities, estimating each one, and then aggregating the results to get the full project schedule. Now, let's move on to the next part. So what are those assumptions? What are the considerations for estimating? That's my base, the best dimension. In almost all processes, project documents get updated based on new information or changes received as part of the project. To connect back to what we have covered so far, we started with the schedule management plan and created a plan. Then, we made a list of activities, sequenced them, and created a network diagram. After that, we estimated the activity duration for each task. Once we do that, we can come up with a schedule. Let's now understand how to create a schedule as part of the developed schedule process. At this stage, we derive the project schedule based on the work done so far and by referring to the schedule model. What inputs should we consider? First, the plan. As it gives us an approach for each process, the plan determines the project's direction, so we need to keep referring to it. Since we are creating the schedule, we also need to refer to the scope baseline. Other important project documents include the activity attributes, assumption log, and dependencies. These documents are useful here. Agreements are another factor. If we are working with third parties, we must consider contractual commitments when developing the schedule. Other factors include enterprise environmental elements. For instance, we need to look at communication channels and scheduling tools. These tools help us work efficiently and professionally. I mentioned some scheduling tools and communication channels. If we are working with third-party vendors or different stakeholders, how do we communicate? What communication channel was agreed upon? Another consideration is the scheduling methodology. What tools and techniques can we use to develop a schedule? The first technique is network analysis. This involves schedule network analysis and network diagrams. When we do network analysis, we determine the minimum time needed to complete the project. Next, we identify critical tasks. These tasks must be completed without delay, as they are part of the critical path method. The critical path is the sequence of tasks that must be completed on time, with no extra time or float available. These tasks must be done within the estimated time to complete the project on schedule. Understanding the critical path is essential because there can be multiple critical paths. Data analysis is another important technique. We also discussed resource optimization, how to use resources efficiently for maximum productivity. Another technique is using Project Management Information Systems, PMIS. If not already in use, PMIS can improve scheduling. Leads and lags also play a role in scheduling. Sometimes, we need to use schedule compression techniques like fast tracking and crashing. Fast tracking means working on tasks in parallel to speed up the project. This is helpful when we are behind schedule. If you want to fast track, you need to identify activities that can be done in parallel. Crashing, on the other hand, involves assigning more people to tasks. However, crashing may increase the risk to the project, so it must be closely monitored. These are some of the schedule compression techniques that will be discussed in detail in the PMP training program. Agile Release Plan. If you are working in an agile environment, you can also create a release plan. This could be a quarterly or monthly release, or you may even deploy and release it to production at the end of every sprint. This depends on your technical readiness, technical excellence, and the type of team members involved in the project. Project Schedule Development. By the end of the schedule development process, we should expect to have a project schedule. Let's take a quick look at what we expect. The first thing is the schedule baseline, which represents the project schedule. This project might take 6 months, a year, or any other agreed upon time frame. The schedule data includes milestone dates, estimation basis, and activity sequencing. The project calendar outlines key milestones and dates to track. Project management plan updates. It is important to update the project management plan regularly to incorporate change requests and new learnings. Once the project schedule is in place, it is crucial to control it. This is covered under the control schedule process. Controlling the project schedule. Since we now have a list of activities, their sequences, estimated durations, and assigned resources, we must ensure that the schedule is followed correctly. We have also accounted for factors like skill constraints and conducted analysis. A schedule model helps provide insights into important dates and milestones. To control the schedule effectively, we should refer to the project schedule management plan and the scope baseline. Project documents such as the activity list, assumption log, and milestone list. Organizational process assets, OPA, which include monitoring and reporting methods. Monitoring and reporting methods. Monitoring methods can include statistical or quantitative analysis of data, qualitative analysis through formal and informal feedback. Work performance data is crucial. As activities progress, data must be collected to compare plan versus actual performance. Tools and techniques. Some useful tools and techniques include data analysis, critical path method, CPM, project management information system, PMIS, resource optimization to manage schedules effectively, schedule compression techniques, lead and lag adjustments, control schedule outcome. At the end of the control schedule activity, we obtain work performance information, which includes the planned schedule versus the actual schedule, schedule forecasting to determine if the project will be completed on time or delayed, change requests and how they are managed. The project management plan and related documents, such as the assumption log and lessons learned, will also be updated accordingly.